Good evening, everyone. Before I start the video, I'm just going to show you where I am. So actually, it's going to be easier if I tell you. So over there, that's the square I started this morning. I'm going to take myself off the video just because you can see it clear. There you go. So these are government buildings that, for the holidays. This is how they decorate them. And I think that's quite cute. And then over here, you have a whole little circuit under these glowing arches that seem to be very, very popular with the couples. And then I think this is pretty cool. This right there, that clock tower is really famous. It's like the symbol of Tirana. It's on the city's emblem. And then, not as nice, but well, I guess it's not as eventful. There's like a little sign that people can go to for the 2020 and pose with it. It's rather cute stuff. But yeah, so I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about my day. So after making the video, I waited for the tour, and I thought I was gonna be the only one because I was the first one to show up. But no, more people here. I'll give you the tower as well. There we go. More people showed up, including, so I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the video or not, but in Sarajevo, there was an Algerian man in my bunker, in my room, in the hostel, and we had talked just a little bit. And yesterday, when I got to the hostel, I kind of looked at this guy, and I was like, you look familiar, and I was like, oh, I met you. And then it took him a while, like he didn't respond at all at the beginning, he just looked at me, and then he's like, oh yeah, and then he's like, Sarajevo. I'm like, right, in Sarajevo. So that was quite fun. And so he was there, he came for the tour, and there was a French couple there. So when they heard me speak French to him, they came and they're like, oh, are you from France? And no, they actually didn't say that. They're like, oh, you speak French. And turns out they're a French couple who left the kids with the grandparents, and they're just doing a week together, a romantic week together. And they had planned one like couple of years ago to go to Croatia, but their car had broken down, and so they're like, we want to do that again, but this time actually make it there. And so they don't like the tourism of Croatia, so they decide to come to Albania. And then there was some Australian, New Zealand, like all the usuals. No America actually. All right, I'm gonna switch arm. So then we decided to do the tour, and the tour guide was really good. Ari was his name. Yeah, super nice, very like informative. So 5 facts about the tour. The first one is on the square we started. The square itself is actually slightly a pyramid. So like the middle is slightly higher than everything else, and it kind of like goes down. And that's so that in the summertime, it collects all the rain. Underneath it's like a big, I guess, pool that collects all the rain. And when it gets too hot, they can turn it on and the water comes out. That way, like, kids can play in the fountains and to, like, freshen up everything. And then it goes down into the drain and then it gets recycled over and over again. So that's what they do. And also around the square, it's a square to represent all of Albania. And so, like, we're on the side of the square right now. But all around the square there are trees. There's, yeah, green spaces. Spaces. And all the trees come from different parts of Albania to sort of represent that, you know, together we're a country. So that's kind of cool. That's it about the square. The second fact is I took a picture of it and I'll put it on Instagram, but on top of the Museum of History, there's a mosaic. And it's actually kind of cool because the mosaic has all the different parts of history of Albania. And so it starts off with the Illyrians, I think they're called. And Ilians, maybe, anyways. And they have, so you have like the warrior of that time, and then you go to the Byzantines who had conquered Albania, and you have a soldier from that era, and then you have the Ottomans, and then you have the World War I soldier, the World War II soldier, you have the communists who come in, the Declaration of Independence. Like, you have all of it in one mosaic it's actually kind of pretty, it's kind of nice. So that's my mosaic fact. So, the next one is a bunker. So there is something called bunk art, And there's two bunkers. One that's more famous, that was closed today, that's a bit away from the city, and the second one, which was open, which I visited, which is in the city. And what's interesting, so my fact, I'll talk to you more about the bunker later on, but the interesting thing about the bunker is that the entrance was not a bunker in itself at the beginning. Like they had to make up a bunker to go there, and many people were against it. They thought it was rude, or they just didn't like it. So they decided to demolish it. They went at it and then made holes in it and set it on fire. And so the museum reached a compromise. They're like, listen, we're gonna keep the bunker, but we're not gonna repair it. We're gonna keep it as is. In that, like, when people visit it, they can see that, like, not everybody was for it. Like, people are very much against it. Like, it's a controversial decision. And apparently that seems to be working. Like, everybody's happy that, you know, it's not, everybody agrees. Then bunker pyramid. So then from there he was like, oh, I'm gonna show you the pyramid of Tirana. This one is not 3,000 years old, but it looks like it is. And we're like, what? So we go to this pyramid, and it's like a pyramid shaped building, but it looks like a shopping mall almost. And it looks like a really run-down shopping mall. Like, all the windows are half broken, there's graffiti all the place, like there's a little fence around it. So we're just like, what is this? And turns out that was a museum for the communist leader. So when the communist leader died, they decided to have a museum all about him, about how great he was. And when the communist regime kind of fell, then they were like, we don't want it to be a museum, and so that's why it's run down. And I can't remember what's going to happen to it now, but yeah, so it's just nothing's happening to it now. And he's like, well, climbing on it, it's not legal, but it's not illegal. So like, okay. He's like, so if you want to climb on it, you can. And as soon as he said that, we saw like 3 guys climbing up it. I didn't, just because I didn't think there was going to be much of a view. Like, it's not, and it was raining when I was close by to it again. But yeah, apparently it's a thing to do, and he's like, yeah, nobody really cares. Which seems to be like a running thing in the Balkans. Like, nobody really cares. Like, when there's no tourists, like, sure, climb the tower, who cares? Don't hurt yourself. And then the last fact, I had to switch facts for the French video because I couldn't remember this one. But the last fact is, oh right, you can still see where the communist leader used to live, and it's a big house. And the government still owns it. They're not sure what to do with it, so they still own it. They're keeping it, but they don't know what to do with it. And what's kind of funny is in front of it, you have KFC, which is one of the first, or I think it is the first international food supplier. Like the first company to sort of invest in Albania was Coca-Cola, but KFC was the first food one. And so in front of the presidential palace, I don't think he was a president, but there is the KFC logo, and the tour guide was like, I kind of like it because the KFC colonel is like, his face is plastered on it, and he's giving like a little smile, like a little laugh, and it looks like he's laughing at the communist leader. So it's like, yeah, he has the last laugh, it's good. So yeah, I do have he talked about a lot of things, but I thought was quite interesting was like the way he talked about Albania's friendship group, because he was saying that like as soon as Albania was independent, so this was like after World War I, I think, it was starting making friends with Yugoslavia, and then it fell away from Yugoslavia because they didn't agree with what they were doing. And then like the next, since they were a communist dictatorship, they were like, oh well, we'll make friends with the USSR. But after Stalin died, apparently the Albanian leader was really like Stalin. After Stalin died, Khrushchev took over, and Khrushchev started slightly criticizing what Stalin was doing. And so the Albanian leader is like, I can't do like Khrushchev because then I'd be criticizing myself. So instead, he just broke all ties with USSR, saying that they were not a communist state. They were going through bad communism. Like, they didn't know how to do it. So that left them friendless, because then they were communists, so they couldn't do anything with the sort of Western powers. But they were against the USSR, so they were kind of and not speaking to Yugoslavia still. So they were in this weird middle. So the closest friend they had was China. So they like went to like speak to China, I guess, and like had relations with China and investments opportunities or what have you. But then in the 70s, China invited Nixon over, and Albania was not about that. They're like, nope, that's it, they lost, they're not communists anymore, like that's not happening. And so they broke ties with China for that. And so yeah. But he's speaking of relations, he also said that like Albania is really trying to be part of the EU. He made a couple of jokes a couple of times, being like, come on, like we don't want to lose a star on the flag, and like UK's leaving, let us in, we're ready. And he's like, no, but in all honesty, like it would be great for us to be in the EU. Like it would give us like, because he says that they're a nation of 27 years, at least that's what they feel like. And so to be to be part of the EU would kind of give them a direction of like, okay, you need to have your economy like this, you need to have your systems like this, you need to have your finances like this. And so he was saying that it could be a really good thing just to keep accountable, just to keep them accountable of what they were doing. But yeah, just all they were saying about Albania and relations kind of made me laugh. And then, so after the tour, we kind of went our separate ways, and I went to eat. They recommended a restaurant, so I went to it. It's a 3-letter restaurant, but I still can't remember what it is. It was quite good. Like, it was traditional food, family run, and I had liver and cottage cheese, just because it was what sounded the most interesting. It was actually quite good. I ate it with bread, and it was actually quite tasty. But then again, I like liver, so. After that, I walked around, and then it started raining a little bit. That's why I didn't climb the pyramid. I was afraid I was gonna slide down. So instead, oh, I forgot to mention, there was somebody in our tour, a German guy, who is doing a cycle trip as well. But he started in Germany, obviously, and then he went to Turkey. So he went to Istanbul as well. That was his goal, and now he's on his way back. And so we talked a little bit, and yeah, his budget is a lot less than mine, and so a lot of times he just said, oh, I just camp wherever, which I think eventually I might start doing, but I don't know, I'm still holding off for the moment. And what else is there? Oh right, so then I visited the bunker, and that was quite interesting. So it was really depressing, the way it was made. So the bunker itself is real, like the underground part is real. It's just that the entrance was somewhere else. And you had like 4 halls, and each hall had a bit of a theme. So the first one was like the gendarmes. I think that they even just called them that, gendarmes, in the English explanations. But the translation was really bad. Like sometimes it didn't make sense, or was like, I don't know. The phrasing was odd, or there was a lot of spelling mistakes, or like, it felt like they just used Google Translate, because at some point they were saying, let's say police, and so they were like, yes, and so it was really difficult for the police and the police. And like, you kind of know that like in Albanian it's probably like 1 word for male and 1 word for female, but it doesn't matter in English, but still it was the same word that they just put twice. But yeah, it was really depressing. So the police part was a bit boring. The second hall was all about like internment camps, and like when people were sent away or executed because they didn't agree with the state. So that was really depressing. And yeah, it was a mix of like, so you would have like an art installation, and there would be like history next to it or around it. So yeah, for the internment ones, like a lot of time, well, in the one that I thought was most shocking, they had like a long list of, actually you had 5, 6, 7 long lists of just the list of people who were executed because of their political alliances or like their political views. So that was quite shocking. And then you had another list for those who were sent to internment camps, and then you had another list for those who died in internment camps, and another list. So it's just really depressing in that way. Then you had a whole hallway about like spying and like the people who spied for the state. And so that was interesting sometimes, because you would have the different devices they used. And so one of them was there was a spy in the Italian embassy, and they had planted 5 bugs, and all of them were found. The one that was not found was one that they had bribed a maid to go in there with her own broom, and they had planted a microphone in the broom that was never found. And yeah, they just showed a whole lot of devices that were used, so that was quite the interesting part. And then, oh right, and then there was one, it was all about, actually it was a lot about art installation. That one was not a lot about anything in particular, but it was like more artsy. And one of them was a room, it felt like an interrogation room. You could hear like the typewriter going at it, like ting ting ting, like just the sounds of it. And you could hear somebody's heartbeats. And the lights, there was one light above everything that was like going to the heartbeats. And so yeah, it was just harsh to imagine that like, yeah, some people were under these conditions and stressed, and like, yeah, and they were saying how like during interrogations they would basically give a script to the person being interrogated and saying, you're gonna say this and we're gonna record it, just because they knew exactly what answers they wanted from him or from the person. And yeah, they also had a list of all the tortures that happened during the interrogation, so that was quite depressing as well. But then leaving the bunker, I just visited Tirana a bit more, just looked around. Nothing much really. It was a bit rainy, so I tried to take some pictures, but not much. I got one, so behind the Museum of Modern Art, there's like different statues that were taken down or that were broken because, well, there's like 2 statues of Stalin. So yeah, there is one statue of Lenin. There's like some communist symbols of things that, yeah, once the communist regime fell, they just were demolished, but the museum kept them and they're not sure what to do with them, so they just have it in like their backyard, just all clumped together. So I took a picture of that, and then yeah, just walked around. I ate at the same place I did yesterday just because it was so good, the special souvlaki. And yeah, and that's about it. That catches you up to now with this pretty sight. Yeah. So tomorrow I have a lot of biking, and tomorrow I'm somewhere where there's not going to be any internet, so that's going to be interesting, but I'll make do. Anyways, I'll leave you with this lovely sight. Alright, bye.